Good afternoon, everyone. We're here with live streaming superstar, at least in my opinion, Stephanie Liu, and we're here to talk about Facebook Live strategy. Hopefully, Tim will be joining us shortly. He's having some technical difficulties, but he's actually going to see if he can join us via his phone, because now that's something you can do with StreamYard for those of you that were wondering about that. So, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, hey, you guys, what's up? I'm Stephanie Liu, and I'm a digital marketing strategist. And I've been in the ad agency trenches for like the last decade and a half. And when I wanted to start my own boutique social media agency, that's when I decided to jump into live video to get out of that sea of sameness, because there's so many digital marketing strategists out there. And we have another guest.
There's Tim. Tim, are you on your phone?
I'm on my phone. Does it look okay?
It sure does.
Perfect.
Wow.
Awesome.
Wow. So see, we tried something new today. So we're always trying new things here on the Tim and Jim show. And of course, it's appropriate because we have the queen of staying on the cutting edge. And so Stephanie, back to one of the things that really makes you love this, because Tim kind of caught us off guard there.
It's like a surprise guest.
Right.
It's like, boom, hey. But yeah, you guys, so I'm Stephanie Liu, and I'm the host of Lights Camera Live, which is another Facebook Live show that shines a spotlight on the best and brightest marketers in the industry. And so you two need to be on the show, because I'd love to learn more about StreamYard, because this is a cool new platform that you guys are using. That's really fun and exciting.
Yeah, we would love to do that, because I tell you, we really feel strongly about how well, and like we were talking before the show, Stephanie, StreamYard and Geige, one of the co-founders of StreamYard, are so community focused, and that's one of the reasons I think we decided to come over to StreamYard. Not to mention all the features that they keep coming out with, like they've just rolled out. We're now, as Tim was able to do, join by phone, screen sharing. The fact that you can stream to multiple platforms through Restream.io, because they've become a partner with them as well. Yay! So it's just amazing. So yeah, we would love to. And I would say, and I think one of the things that we can talk about, because I know you're really big in eCam, and would love to get some of your feedback on that during the show. But this is a great platform, especially for those folks that have a Windows computer. Very easy to use. But
are you just amazed at like how the live streaming platforms are now starting to pop up, and they're just making it so easy for people to start live streaming? So if you're one of those people where you're just kind of like, man, I'm really interested in live streaming, I heard about it at Social Media Marketing World and I don't know how to get started, listen, it's getting easier and easier. So definitely,
right.
It. And ask your questions today, because you have all three of us.
That's right. That's right. So speaking of questions, let's go to question number one, Stephanie. And so, should your business be on Facebook Live?
Yeah, well, listen, if you guys want to stand out from the sea of sameness, if you want to get engagement from your community, then live streaming is one of those ways that will definitely get you top of mind and tip of tongue. Because what we're finding is that 87% of audiences prefer live video over social media posts, like regular posts and regular links and blog posts, because it's a way for you to actually engage with your audience. Kind of like what you were saying just right now about like why you prefer the StreamYard community, because it feels like a community. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm a psychology nerd. I studied neuropsychology back in my uni days, and it was all about like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and how us as human beings by nature, we desire community, and we want to have that sense of belongingness. And so when you have a show where you could connect with your audience, get their questions answered, they're going to feel more connected to you and to your brand itself.
Right. And I think one of the things too, that even at Social Media Marketing World, where we actually had a chance to meet in person and really enjoyed the time we got to spend together there, was just the fact that Facebook and all these platforms are starting to go more and more towards this live platform, but yet there's still so few businesses that are really taking advantage of it. And it's not that you have to have, like we're doing this show, but just share those moments.
Yeah.
And like you talked about with even on Instagram, doing some Instagram lives and creating stories, and Facebook's getting bigger into stories. In fact, Stephanie, how would you say is a good way to use live in general to say, tell some stories on either Facebook or Instagram?
So how am I connecting my stories with my live show? Oh, okay. Do you guys follow Kelly Noble Mirabella by any chance?
We sure do.
Okay. Did you watch her YouTube live yesterday?
Not yet, but that's on my list.
You're going to want to watch it because she teaches you how you can connect your Facebook stories to your chatbot. Right?
Wow.
So if they're watching your Facebook stories, you could say, hey, if you're interested in watching this show, leave the comment, subscribe, and then it connects to your chatbot. And then you can notify them when your live show is going to happen. So that's like a really cool hack that I learned from her just yesterday, and I put it into implementation, and it was really cool. Wow. But if you're not doing any of the chatbot stuff, like other ways that you could leverage stories is give people a sneak peek, like what's happening behind the scenes. It's super simple. Doesn't have to be like overly produced at all. It could just be like, hey, I'm going to join like the Jim and Tim show and it's going to be amazing. This is what we're going to talk about, right? There's so much that you can do, especially with stories, because not only can it pop up like on your business page, but I get more of a lifespan from it, from sharing it into all of the groups that I'm in. So the social media strategist group, the 360 group, and then I could even put it on my personal profile. So it's really cool in that sense. And I'm really going to geek out with you guys because this is like my second cup of coffee. I saw like your list of questions and I was like, I really don't know if we're going to go through all that. And then here's another cool thing is that I saw Mary Fane Brandt is having a LinkedIn local event, right? So she created a Facebook event and I didn't know that you could actually share your event into stories. So for those of you that are creating Facebook events to promote your live shows, that's another way that you could connect your live show to your stories. So I'm just like the Facebook ecosystem, if you really know like what levers to pull, right? Like kind of like Mari Smith was talking about where they're hiding the cheese. If you know the ways to engage with your audience by pulling those levers, you're going to get a lot of more traction with your live show. Wow.
Those are some just amazing tips. And Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a really awesome tip. I had no idea that you could share your event into stories. So I'm going to start doing that today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but Stephanie, why should businesses really be using Facebook Live? Well, like what kind of goals should they have in order to be using it?
That's such a good question. I mean, there's different objectives that you can have, right? Just as you would have different objectives for Facebook ad campaigns. It could be one just for raising awareness, right? Because when you're posting something on your Facebook business page, hands down, you'll most likely get more engagement on your live video than any other post that you put out there. So from an awareness perspective, you're already building awareness for your brand. And if down the line you decide to use ads, right? You can go ahead and create a targeted audience for that specific topic and then retarget them down the line to purchase your product, your event, tickets, things of that sort. So awareness is a really good one. For sales specifically, like I've used live streaming to kind of to promote the fact that like my cart for my signature program is going to be closing. And I was like, look, you guys, doors are going to slam shut. The next time you'll have access to this program isn't going to be until February 2020. So if you want to know, now's the time. And if you have any last minute questions, ask them right now. So that's like another way that you could just directly get people to purchase your product. And then as far as pre-promoting your events, that's another good way. I mean, for the Midwest Digital Marketing Conference, another one of my clients, their conference doesn't happen until I think it's like April 16th through the 19th. But because we have so many speakers, you guys, we invited the speakers to come on every Monday to do a show, to tease their sessions, to tease their workshops. So that's another great way to build that buzz and that anticipation. So think about that. Like, how can you use that in your business?
Right. And Stephanie, we were talking before the show as well, something that you're going to be talking about in St. Louis, but the fact that maybe these folks are afraid to produce their own live, but there's actually ways that, you know, if they find the right marketers, you obviously being one of them, you can actually help them do that even remotely. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So if you're currently live streamers, this is going to be a game changer for you because this could be an additional side income for you. Or if you're an entrepreneur and you're like, look, listen, you guys, I totally want to do video, but I don't want to deal with the tech. I just want to sit in front of my computer, turn on the camera, and not have to worry about graphics, overlays, intros, etc. Here's what you could do. You could take advantage of a remote live producer. That is someone who can help you strategically pre-promote your show, develop your run of show, launch the actual live stream itself, engage with your audience, moderate the comments, and then if you get the full service, they could go ahead and help you repurpose and optimize your videos. That way you no longer have to worry about your social media content calendar. So that's what I'm talking about over at the Midwest Digital Marketing Conference. So we'll talk about the whole entire process, a couple of case studies, even how you can get your first client, right? Because who doesn't love that?
Right.
And then if you're the brand, if you're the entrepreneur and you're really just kind of like, okay, I want this, I want to do this, I want to hire a remote live producer, there are certain questions that you want to ask, right? So what are those questions that you want to ask? And how much should you charge, right? Or how much should you be paying for this? That's everything. It's a 3-hour workshop. So
Wow.
For those of you that are following like my Facebook stories, I'm just like Post-it notes everywhere. I'm like diving into it.
And I could see where that could be huge for events because you have so many of these organizations that really should be using Facebook Live at their events, and they struggle with like, well, how do we do it? So I think if they bring in a pro, it could definitely 10x their event coverage and get more people interested in whatever they're doing.
Yep. And not only just Facebook, but even on YouTube, because then you have access to powerful platforms like Restream, which you guys use too, right?
We're just starting to, right? We're getting ready to figure out what the best way to launch that is, because I think one of the things, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, is when you do stream to multiple platforms, how do you keep track of all the comments coming in from all these different platforms so your audience doesn't feel left out? So Stephanie, what would be your tips for getting started on live video?
Oh, that's a good one. It really depends, right? Like if confidence is a big barrier for you, confidence is one step that you want to go ahead and take. And usually I tell clients that if you're struggling with just even being on camera, practice doing Instagram stories. Just like get used to the fact of actually hearing your own voice, because in our heads, our voices sound a lot deeper. Like for me, I feel like I'm like, I got a deep voice, but when it comes out, it's a lot higher. And especially when I get super excited, it gets even higher. But you could do stories, or you could just record yourself. When I first started, I would say, okay, this is day one. I'm just listening to my voice. What are my weird quirks? Okay, maybe I shouldn't move my hand that way. I would just kind of like start looking at my videos and be like, okay, I need to sit like this, shoulders back, etc. So that's one way that you could build confidence. Another way is I create a private Facebook group, and that's where I'll actually live stream into the group. I'll practice with my delivery. I'll practice with my graphics. Does it look right? All of that good stuff. Because if you notice, sometimes people go live and they're like, oh, that's not the way that I wanted it to happen. It's like, oh, you should have practiced, right? Like get familiar with the buttons. And if you have a trusted friend, invite them into the group, and then they could give you feedback. They could say like, hey, your mic is a little hot right now, or you probably didn't notice this because you're focusing on the content, but there's this weird Pikachu in the background. Maybe you might want to move that Pikachu, right? I have a daughter, so she likes to put like random stuff on my shelf. So every now and then I'll talk and I'm like, what is that? And I was like, oh, I wish I knew that. Right.
And in fact, that's what was nice about StreamYard is they do have a test environment. So, and that's the first time before Tim and I did this, we were actually playing in the test environment so we could kind of play around and figure out how all the different buttons work before the first time we went live on it. So that's another great feature of StreamYard that we really like. But I definitely, that's something that I did, to your point, is I have like a secret Facebook group that I can practice in if I want to see how something's going to look. So I think that's a great point. And even just groups in general. I mean, if you don't want to go live on your page, go live to your group, share stuff with people you're comfortable with. I think that's great points.
Yeah. And some people will try to tell you, or some people might suggest go live on your personal page and then flip it to only me. The reason why I don't do that, you guys, is because it'll get buried with all of the other stuff that's out there. And I don't know about you, but so I use a DSLR when I live stream, and sometimes I'll mess around with my settings, or I'll get like a new camera. At least in a group, I could keep track of all the little quirks and the changes that I make to my gear, right? Like I could say on camera, I have lighting here, here, and here. This is how it looks like. If I were to do that on my personal profile, I wouldn't be able to see it as quickly, right? Because it'll be buried with like, oh, the photo albums from social media marketing world, or like I shared this broadcast. It'd be really hard for me to find, but at least in groups, right? At least in a group, I could organize my content. And if you're leveraging the learning functionality, you could label it into units and be like, okay, this was when I was messing around with my lighting. These are all the different lightings that I had. This is my mobile lighting. This is my studio lighting, etc.
Right. And we got a question from Vicki. Since we're talking about gear, she's asked, speaking of a mic, what do you recommend to avoid background noise?
Well, I mean, it depends if it's going to be like on your smartphone, right? Because you could use a lavalier mic, or if you're in a studio, kind of like us here. I use a Blue Yeti, which is my favorite. And it's usually available online, but I'll tell you, like my starter mic was the ATR 2100. Did anyone else use that? ATR? ATR 2100 was my favorite because it was like $79. And then everyone found out. And then it's really hard to find now, which is crazy.
Yeah. Tim, what you got any thoughts? What you want to ask Stephanie the next question?
Sure. So speaking of content, like there are a lot of people now that are doing live video out there. Do you have any specific tips in terms of how to stand out in terms of the content perspective of live video?
That's a good one. So are you just talking about content in terms of topics, or like how to make your show stand out?
Probably more the latter.
How to make your show stand out. Okay, cool. That's the fun part. That's where you get to really be creative, because listen, anyone can jump in front of the camera, right? Because you're like, okay, cool. I've done my practice into the Facebook groups. Now I'm just going to go live. That's awesome. That's like the first step. But then everyone's at that first step. If you really want your show to stand out, there's really cool things to do. Like you guys, like right now you have the graphics at the bottom. You're showing the different questions. You're able to engage with your audience by showing the comments. That's another step up, right? Other cool people are doing things where they have intro videos, outro videos. They're dropping in tutorials, or, right? And Jim was just showing this to me, like how you could actually screencast. So instead of just describing it and thinking people are seeing the same pictures in their head as you might as well just show your desktop and show them. Because what you call it, right? Like if I say publishing tools on Facebook, they might not know what that means because they're not as advanced as you. But if you could share your screen, then they're like, oh, I got it. It's that thingy at the top.
Right. And we actually have Geige from StreamYard is actually here. And he's got a question of, are there any big changes in live streaming that people should be aware of for 2019? And Geige, thank you for not only being on our show today watching, but just all the support that StreamYard is providing to the community. And you really just, you guys are doing a tremendous job.
I love it. Yeah, Geige, I've heard so many wonderful things about StreamYard. A couple of my students were like, have you seen this? Have you heard of this? And I'm in the group too, and I see like all of the comments popping up. But as far as live streaming and what's changing in general, you know, Facebook at F8. So I was at Facebook F8 last year, and I had beta access to Facebook Live Producer, which you guys, the way that StreamYard is set up, the way that it looks is very similar to what Facebook had in their Live Producer. But here's the thing. If I were to try to log into Facebook Live Producer now, it no longer exists. So as far as I know, I haven't heard of any new advancements when it comes to live streaming on Facebook itself. But that's why I'm headed over to Facebook F8 at the end of the month. And I'm going to go there, and I get to sit down with the team. Eric was his name. And I was like, show me what's going on and show me what's happening. But for those of you like Jim and Tim, you guys know this. You heard Mari speak at Social Media Marketing World as well, how things are shifting, and they're probably going to be focusing more on WhatsApp, on Messenger groups and stories, right? So we'll see if they talk about live streaming at F8. And if they do, then Geige, then I'd be more than happy to share with everyone.
So Stephanie, what do you think are there benefits to streaming to multiple platforms? And I guess even further, would you say that one should be your primary over the others if you were going to stream multiple, or like if you were going to pick two, what two would you pick?
You know what? I would probably try to choose one where you know your audience is going to live. Like for me, I could go live on Facebook and I know that YouTube will show up, right? Because that's where the audience and the fans are and that's where they hang out. If I were to go live on YouTube alone by itself, it would just be me because I don't really have an audience there. But I think that also relies on the fact that I don't do as much promotion as I do on YouTube. I don't create a lot of content as I would on YouTube. But if I were to go ahead and live stream to multiple platforms, I would obviously do that with restream.io. I would take advantage of the chat stream that they have because now they'll pull in the comments from both of those channels, which is really nice. So if you have StreamYard, right, then you could go ahead and flip into the desktop area and you can actually just show that screen if you wanted to. And then you can see all the different people that are engaging. So that's a really cool way to do that. One thing that I didn't like about restream.io was the fact that if I do a scheduled Facebook Live broadcast, right, which is cool because you get to like get people building that anticipation for your show, is that if you do the scheduled live broadcast, it doesn't work on restream.io if you just use the regular Facebook button. You would have to use the custom RTMP. Okay, I'm geeking out with you. For those of you that are like, wait, what is she talking about? But you two get it, right? And so if I were to do a scheduled broadcast, take that custom RTMP and put it into restream.io, restream.io doesn't pull in those comments from Facebook. I learned that the hard way because then I was only seeing comments on YouTube and I was like, hello, one person. And then like my Facebook audience was like, where are my comments? Because they're so used to seeing that on the show.
Right. Tim, you want to go ahead and ask the next question?
Sure. Stephanie, what are your favorite ways to monetize Facebook Lives? What are some strategies we could use?
Are you guys using the Facebook catalog feature by any chance?
No.
Have you heard about this?
No. Tell us more.
So I was on the Thinkific broadcast where we were teaching course creators how they could leverage live video, right? Like you could pre-promote your course and all of that stuff. And I even told you about my experience where when the cart was closing, I would do a live broadcast. Well, if you were to take your product, your service, maybe your book or even your course and create an actual shop item in your Facebook catalog, in your actual live stream, you could tag your product. What's really cool then is that in your live stream at the very bottom, you will see your actual product show up with a thumbnail, your price tag, and they could click on it and purchase your product from there. For those of you that are doing product demos, right? Like you're doing unboxings and things like that, that's a great way to make some affiliate income, right? Or if you're a course creator, you could say get in now, and then it actually takes them directly over to your product page. So that's one of the great ways that you could go ahead and monetize your live stream. That's probably one of the ways that I've had like passive income now because my videos, I have them organized in playlist. And so people are just like, I'm just going to binge watch this. And like every new lighting she mentions or whatever, they're going to get it, right? So that's one way. So use the Facebook catalog, tag your products. The second way is actually creating a media kit for your show. Do you guys have this for your show?
Media kit?
A media kit.
No, but maybe my PR expert, Tim, should create the media kit.
Yeah. So as you'd normally see like in a blogger's media kit, right? How large is your audience? Who's your target audience? How many views are you getting? What brands have you worked with? What are people saying about the show? All of that built into a media kit. And at the very bottom, how much does it cost to sponsor your show? Right. And not only is it your show, because you guys are probably repurposing your content on other channels too. Right? So again, kind of like what we were talking about in remote live producer, you could have different pricing strategies. So even in your media kit, it could be the full gamut of you're on the show, it's on Facebook, it's on YouTube, it's repurposed to LinkedIn, you have 1-minute social media clips, you have a blog post, it's sent out to our email newsletters. You break that down, and that's another great way that you could go ahead and monetize your show.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. I never thought of that, but that's reasons why we have people like you on the show, Stephanie, because you really help our audience learn. Because we really focus, like you said, our audience goal. We do get a lot of marketers on here, but really we want to help small businesses figure out how to take those next steps, because so many of them struggle with social in general. And it's not something that you can just like, oh, I'm going to go out on Facebook and post. In fact, I think like we were talking about earlier, the big thing is becoming stories. And as Facebook evolves their feed to more of a feed plus stories type of environment, which I'm sure they'll be talking about at F8, there's a lot of people that aren't using stories at all. And so that's also an opportunity for a lot of small businesses.
Yeah. I mean, and even if you're a small business, right? If you wanted to sell ad space into your live stream, technically you can. I mean, Facebook says like, don't do that. Like if you've ever really read like the terms of use, but some people do get their shows sponsored and we'll plug that in there and it works out.
Right. Well, and I mean, we're not officially sponsored by StreamYard, but trust me, we're always telling people that we're powered by StreamYard because we want people to use StreamYard, because that, you know, helps grow that community and allows them to do more and make this the great platform that it's continuing to evolve into. Tell us, so, because I know it wasn't specifically a question, but tell us about Ecamm, because that's something for the Mac users out there that I think they need to think about as well.
Yeah, so Ecamm is my go-to platform. For those of you who don't know, I actually produce 4 different shows. And what Ecamm allows me to do is I could group all of my assets into separate folders. And so when it's time for me to host the 360 show or the MDMC show, I just drag that folder over, right? And then I have hotkeys where I could go ahead and switch between my intros, my outros, who's on the screen, and all of that great stuff. Very similar to StreamYard. If I wanted to show guest comments, I could go ahead and drag the comments over and do it that way, which is great for engagement because everyone likes to be recognized and valued that they're a viewer. You could share your screen. You could share a PDF. So if you wanted to go like through a keynote presentation, it's easy to do that as well. You could bring up to like 5 different guests via Skype. Or if you're a Zoom person, you could basically share your Zoom screen, pass the audio from Zoom into Ecamm, and have as many guests as you want. Jim and Tim, I don't know if you know this, but like one of our good friends, Desiree. Have you met Desiree?
I haven't met her, but I'm connected with her.
Okay. So Desiree was saying, Stephanie, I want to do like this virtual summit and I want to have like a bunch of people on the broadcast, but this platform and that platform only allows me to do up to 5 or 6 people. And I was like, well, hey, you could hack that just by using Zoom, right? Use Zoom, and then you could still brand your show through Ecamm. So that's another great way to stand out, right? Because Tim was saying, like, how do you make your shows stand out? Yes, you could do the overlays, you could do graphics, and just build it for the way that Zoom is laid out. Wow.
And another quick question, you'd probably be best at explaining this. Vicki wanted to know, what do we mean by stories?
Stories are like 15-second little videos that you would see on Instagram or on Facebook. It originated right from Snapchat, right, everyone? And then Snapchat didn't want to play nice with Facebook. So they're 15-second stories, right, Vicki, that you could upload over to your Facebook business page, your group, or your personal profile, and they'll disappear after 24 hours. So if you think about that, you could create episodic content. It creates this feeling of FOMO, this fear of missing out, that if you don't catch the story, then something might happen. It's a great way for people. I think one of the reasons, like psychologically, why we're so interested in stories is because it's always moving, right? Whereas sometimes in a video or in a live stream, it's just one view. But generally when people are doing stories, they're like walking down the street, walking down the park. There's just different ways that you can interact. There's other things like you could include hashtags. You could do one of those things like Jen Herman just did this. She's like, what do you do after a long conference to recover? And I was like, I need to take a hot shower. Because I was like, after social media world, I was like, I am dead. I can't do this. So it's just another way that you could engage with your audience. It could feel less produced, Vicki, right? So you don't have to worry about getting a DSLR, getting mic'd up and all of that stuff because it feels more personal. How would you guys describe it?
No, I think that's a great way. And what I've started doing, especially since the conference, more so on Instagram, is, and I didn't realize until I watched, I think it was Donna Maritz's presentation, that I could share people's posts on Instagram as my story. And so it's a great way to share content and give people shout outs. And, because I always like to joke because I'm a retired Marine, I'm not very, I'm graphically challenged and content challenged. So I like to, basically build community by sharing stuff, like it's Autism Awareness Month. So I shared one of April Roga's posts about Autism Awareness Month in my story because now we don't have to clutter our Instagram feed because like you said, it'll disappear. And I just think it's a great way, not only for, as a way to share events like you're talking about. I got an event coming up. People see it. You can link them. So that's what I like about stories. And so I'm doing a lot more on Instagram. And I know I need to start doing more on Facebook because I think it was 500 million people are watching stories every day. Yeah. Which is more people than live in the United States. So that's a pretty crazy
I just wanted to show you like how much real estate you get on your Facebook page. So, I mean, that's half of my screen basically at that point, right? Because that's half of my screen and it's there and I can see it and they're all popping up. And I'll tell you, people used to say, well, Facebook stories is dead. No one really uses it. I'm actually finding that I'm getting the same amount of views that I get on Instagram stories with my Facebook stories now.
Yeah, I think it's definitely picking up. Yeah. And I think when that's what Facebook wants, and maybe they're doing that on purpose.
And it's different too, right? Because if you look at it, right, Vicki, Tim, Jim, it's a rectangle. So you get more real estate than it was on Instagram where it's just a little circle and it's just your icon. So you're not really getting like a preview. Right. Right. So I see like Jen and Sean. That's so funny. This is obviously the people that I pay attention to the most. Right. You guys win. I love your stories.
So
Tim, you want to wrap things up?
Sure. So thanks so much for being on this show, Stephanie. Are there any other tips or anything that we think we missed during the show before we wrap up?
If you're going to dive into live video, just know that it might feel like you're walking on a tightrope and you're like, oh no, like something might happen. The live streaming community is so supportive. And if you're ever struggling with your gear, your mics, any of that stuff, right? Your live streaming community, your StreamYard community, your BeLive, your Ecamm are going to be your safety net. So if you ever feel like you're kind of like, right, there's always going to be someone there that can catch you. All you really have to do is just message us, honestly, because I could reach out to Jim and be like, hey, tell me about your lighting. Tell me about that backdrop. How did you do that? Or Tim, how did you jump on to StreamYard through your mobile? Like I just know that you guys are going to be super helpful because we are a very helpful and supportive community. So if you have any questions, just know that there are those of us that have walked in your shoes before, and we would be very happy to hold your hand and walk you through the process.
And Stephanie, that's even something that, Julie from Depict Media talked about. It's like we all started somewhere. And I think that's what people forget. I mean, a year ago, I wasn't doing live video, but then like I shared a post recently, like, Kelly Noble Mirabella had a Facebook Live challenge. So that got me to start doing the live. And then Tim saw me getting interviewed on a show. And he's like, hey, how'd you like to so we all started somewhere. And, I think what I love about this community in general of social media marketers, you're right. There's a lot of collaboration. It's not like, oh, well, I want to get Stephanie's clients. That's not how it works, at least not in my book. I mean, there may be a few people out there like that, but I always like to say there's more people out there that need help than people that can help them.
Yeah. I'll also say too that if you feel like, oh, Jim and Tim already have their own show, right? So that means I can't do it. You still can, because the way that you deliver your content is going to vary. Like my show is very high energy, and like the way that it's produced is going to look and feel different, whereas someone else might want less graphics and more like personal. So the way that you deliver your content is going to cater to your audience. So never feel like if someone else already started that you can't do it yourself.
Right. And Stephanie, what's the best way for people to reach out and connect with you on the different social platforms?
The best way right now is in the Social Media Strategist Facebook group, because that's where I'm testing. That's where I get to really engage with people. And if I get like a thumbs up from the group, like, yeah, that should be the topic, then that's going to be the show. So if there's something that you're just like, man, I really wish that she could dive into more about Facebook stories and how she's leveraging it, drop that in the group and then I'll actually make it happen, because there's no point in me creating content that's only going to serve me. We all create shows to serve you and to answer your questions. So if you want to give feedback, if you want to learn what's happening behind the scenes, then join the Social Media Strategist Facebook group.
And do you mind if we share that link in the comments?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we'll put that link in the comments after the show. And so Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on today. And we would love to come talk about StreamYard on one of your future episodes on one of your shows. That would be great. We really, like I said, really like it. This was your first experience with StreamYard. What'd you think?
You know, I really like it. And so like, I'll share it from my experience. So I like the fact that I could see what's being shared on the screen right now. I think that's really cool. It lets me know, like, and this is from the producer perspective, it lets me know if my head is too big, right? Because have you ever watched a show where like someone's like really, really close and you're like, girl, you need to like move back a bit, right? So I love that. I love that I could see what is being shown from the graphics, because then I could stay on topic. A lot of the times I was like, man, I'm going off on a tangent, but this is so good, I'm just going to go for it. And then I'd look back at the question like, oh yeah, did I answer that? So I really like that. And everything that you showed me in the green room in terms of like stuff, you could show your screen, you could have different like layouts and formats. I think it's easy to use. And I love that they're connected over to Restream. And so it sounds like Geige and the rest of the team are doing a fantastic job in building a community and building the features that we as live streamers want to have without making us pull our hair out.
Right. Well, thanks again, Stephanie, Tim as well. And thank you, Stephanie. Thanks, Geige. You know, we love being a part of the StreamYard community. And thank you for everyone that's either watching the show live or on replay. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks.
See you guys.
Bye.